I am the captain of my soul. And that seems to me to be a very good theme for this audience, because as I understand it, some of you at least are contemplating a career in law, and no doubt you may feel that that's a rather daunting prospect. It's the received wisdom that law is probably the most heavily oversubscribed profession. And I am frequently asked for advice by young people, and more often their parents, as to whether or not I would recommend a career in law, and particularly whether I'd recommend someone to come to the bar. And my invariable response to that request is this: it is, like many professions, a precarious one. It demands not only intellectual ability, but a rather indefinable complex of attributes and aptitudes. And frequently, if you come to the bar, you may take 4 or 5 years to discover that it's not the place for you. And unquestionably, you need a large dose of that commodity which we all need in life, namely luck. So it's a profession which does create daunting hurdles. But if you can overcome those hurdles, then certainly, if my experience is anything to go by, there is no more satisfying, no more rewarding profession than law. So I hope that you, some of you at least, will be inspired by this evening's proceedings, at least to consider strongly the law as a profession, because we need committed young people, we need idealistic young people, and above all, we need a diverse range of people to staff our courts in the future. Let me say something about my own personal experience. Like Justice Cameron, but in a very different way, I come from a very divided community in Northern Ireland, and I had absolutely no contacts in law. And when I informed my teachers at school that I intended to become a lawyer, they were immediately and massively skeptical about the prospects of success. Not least because I'd chosen law rather by default. I didn't want to be a teacher like my mother. She warned me against that profession. I certainly wasn't well enough equipped in the sciences to aspire to become a doctor or a physicist or anything like that. So law really presented itself as the only alternative. And I embarked on my career at university with only the most hazy notion of what law entailed. And I more or less fell into the bar course after I completed my degree, and I suddenly found myself at the tender age of 22 representing people sometimes who were at risk of losing their liberty. So it was a most innocent way of embarking upon a legal profession. As I say, I come from a divided community. My own background is Catholic background, and of course it's well established that for many generations Catholics were discriminated against in Northern Ireland. But I benefited, as did many of my generation, from the enactment of, in 1947 of the Education Act, which provided free education to all of the population. And I think it's probably a reasonable conclusion, although it's for historians to make the final judgment, that young Catholic people of my generation were encouraged by their parents to take full advantage of the opportunities that the Education Act provided. And we perhaps needed somewhat less by way of incentive than did our Protestant counterparts to take our chance and exploit the opportunities that the education gave us. That opportunity was built upon by enlightened legislation, the fair employment legislation in particular, and of course sex discrimination legislation in Northern Ireland, which began to break down the barriers that had existed previously. It is, I'm afraid, a sad legacy that we continue for the most part to be educated separately in Northern Ireland. And it's my hope and wish that the integrated schools which are springing up in Northern Ireland will flourish. Because it seems to me that until we can bring our young people together in an educational system where they learn from each other, that we will never have a truly integrated society. Nevertheless, the great strides that have been made in Northern Ireland are, at least in part, due to the enactment of legislation such as the Fair Employment legislation, which forbade discrimination on the grounds of religion, as well as that enlightened reforms in relation to the police service, whereby there was a compulsory 50-50 recruitment from the Catholic population and the Protestant population, has meant that there has been a redressing of the serious imbalance that existed previously in the police force in Northern Ireland. Sadly, as most of you will know, that has meant that those small number of dissident Republicans have deliberately targeted police officers from the Catholic background. And a young man just a couple of weeks ago who shares the same surname as I, Ronan Kerr, was mercilessly killed by Republican terrorists. But there is, I am happy to say, no shortage of brave, committed, and idealistic young people such as you, who are prepared to invest in the future of their country by continuing to join the police service. And among many of my friends, their sons and daughters have made that commitment, which I think is a great hallmark of the youth of today. I'm frequently asked by contemporaries what I feel about the youth of today. I have two sons, both of them lawyers, incidentally, and I have been privileged to meet a legion of their friends, and I'm convinced that the young people of today are just as idealistic, just as intelligent, just as committed to justice as we were, if anything more so. So it's my wish that some of you at least will be inspired by this evening's discussions to consider making that commitment. If it's not in law, at least to some form or some element of society that will allow you to give voice to, give expression to the idealism that all of you share. Thank you very much.
Hi, sorry I've been unable to learn the introduction off by heart. It's been quite short notice. Justice Taffesse Yirga has studied law at the University of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and is currently studying an LLM in Human Rights Law at Birkbeck University after receiving the prestigious Shivling Scholarship from the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Justice Yirga served as Deputy Chief Prosecutor in Addis Ababa before serving for 10 years as a Federal High Court presiding judge. In 2004, he was appointed to the Federal Supreme Court of Ethiopia, Cassation Division, as one of the most highly respected judges in the country. We are very lucky that he has agreed to speak with us today.
I thank you very much. Honorable Justices, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank for inviting me, Big Boys in general, and Jennifer Blair in particular, for inviting me to make a short speech in this colorful event, okay? And first of all, allow me please to introduce myself and my country. I came from Ethiopia. Ethiopia is situated at the eastern part of Africa, at the Horn of Africa, close to Middle East, and it is the only country in Africa never been colonized. During First and Second World War, Italians attempted to occupy Ethiopia, but Ethiopians' heroes with only traditional weapons fought to protect their country's political sovereignty and territorial integrity. And Italians were defeated 2 times and they retreat. And victory of Adwa every year in my country colorfully celebrates because victory of Adwa inspired all freedom-loving peoples across the nation, across the world, okay? So Ethiopia is the only country in Africa never been colonized. As a result of this, we have our own culture, our own alphabet, our own calendar, okay? And we are by 8 years back from from European calendar. That means if somebody wants to go to Ethiopia, automatically you will become young by 8 years. So try to go, and in the meantime you will visit that nice country. We have welcoming people and beautiful country. With regard to me, of course, my colleague explained it. I have received my LLM degree from the former Soviet Union. Just shortly after the collapse of Soviet Union, I received my LLM degree with distinction, and then I went back home. I am nationalist, and I have served for about 5 years as a prosecutor in Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa is the capital city of Ethiopia. At the same time, it is the seat of the African Union. You know, the European Union, the seat of the European Union is Brussels, yeah? And the seat of African Union is Addis Ababa. So I have served there for 5 years. Then, taking into consideration my performance, I was appointed as a High Court judge, and I have served for 10 years as a High Court judge. And then I moved to, or I appointed to Federal Supreme Court by Ethiopian Parliament, and I have served for 4 years as Supreme Court judge, and currently I am studying human rights law at Berkeley College, just to specialize, okay? So this is my academic and professional background, okay? With regard to equality before the law, equality before the law in my country and in many African countries, colorfully written by constitution. Everybody is equal before the law, regardless of his or her political, economical, social, cultural, or any other background. Everybody is equal before the law. But the practice is entirely different. I think you are very well aware what is going on currently in Northern Africa, in Cote d'Ivoire, in the Middle East. That is absence of what? Equality, inequality, because those who are in power, they are living the most luxurious life. The whole resource goes to them. Why? The vast majority of Africans, okay, they are living in a very desperate and destitute situation, including my country, because the resource is not distributed amongst the people equitably, okay? So when we talk about equality, people should be equal in all aspects, in all circumstances, okay? Yeah? Economically, socially, politically, and in all aspects. Of course, in South Africa, the situation is entirely different. South Africa, definitely it is the most civilized nation. Economic, social, and cultural rights, okay, which is ascertained by constitution of the country, practically applied to all nations. I just talked to my colleague. They gave the most cited case in government of South Africa versus Rina Grootboom case. Rina Grootboom means they were living the most destitute life. May I assist you? Yeah, they brought their case to the attention of the court, and the South African Constitutional Court gave a very, very nice decision in that case, which is the most cited one across the world, okay? But when we come to my country, of course, my country is still poor country. Of course, a bit now the economy is started booming. As a result of some resource constraint, this equality, which is ascertained by constitution and other laws, cannot be implemented, okay? Of course, some say that economic, social, and cultural rights can be implemented based on the maximum available resource of each nation, yeah? But the maximum available resource in every country goes to the army, yeah? Huge number of army. The army is an